Block 1. The New Wealth Mindset. Have you noticed that the newly rich seem to play a completely different game? While many people still follow the old playbook, work hard, save, wait for retirement, this new generation of financially independent people is growing at an absurd rate. And it's not luck. It's mindset. The difference between those who accumulate wealth slowly and those who grow quickly is not just in how much they earn, but in how they think about money, time, and risk. The newly rich don't see money as an end. They see it as a tool. They don't just work to earn more. They work to create systems that continue generating even when they sleep. 1. What it really means to be newly rich. Being newly rich isn't about showing off. It's about freedom. It's about having time to choose what to do, and not just what needs to be done. It's about understanding that money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys options, and options are what truly change lives. The newly rich don't wait for the future to arrive. They build it. They don't follow the traditional path. They create shortcuts. And the most curious thing, almost all of them started from scratch. 2. The turning point. Imagine someone who grew up hearing that the secret was saving money. Now, that person discovers that saving money is not the same as making money grow. That's the turning point. The newly rich understand that idle money loses value. They know that the real game is putting money to work. And that changes everything. While most think about security, they think about growth. While some are afraid of losing, they are afraid of not trying. 3. The financial trauma of previous generations. Previous generations were shaped by crises, recessions, and broken promises. They learned to distrust the system, to seek stability, to avoid risks. But the newly rich were born in a different context. They saw the power of the internet, information, and autonomy. They realized that the system can fail, but creativity and knowledge never do. This difference in origin created a new financial psychology, a blend of boldness and strategy. They are not reckless. They are calculatedly courageous. 4. The secret to speed. Why do they grow so fast? Because they don't play the scarcity game. They play the multiplication game. While many think about, how much can I save, the newly rich think about, how can I scale? They understand that time is the most valuable asset, and that every minute spent just working is a minute that could be building something that works for them. 5. The new concept of work. For the newly rich, work isn't about hours. It's about impact. They don't just want a job. They want a project, a brand, an idea that generates value even when they're not present. They create digital businesses, invest in assets, build audiences, and automate processes. They're not running away from work, they're redefining what work means. 6. The paradox of simplicity. The most interesting thing is that, despite appearing sophisticated, the newly rich are mental minimalists. They simplify everything. They don't waste time on irrelevant details. They know that focus is the new luxury. While the world is distracted by 1,000 options, they choose one and go all in. They don't try to do everything. They try to do one thing well. 7. Closing block 1. The mindset of the newly rich isn't about having more money. It's about thinking differently. They don't wait for the system to work. They build their own system. And that's why they grow so fast. Block 2. The invisible rules of the new rich mindset. 1. They play the abundance game. While many people think about saving what's left over, the new rich think about creating more sources of income. It's not just about cutting expenses, it's about multiplying gains. They understand that money is not a fixed pie that needs to be divided. It's a recipe that can be repeated and expanded. 2. The focus on assets, not consumption. The new rich don't spend energy accumulating things. They accumulate assets, investments, businesses, properties, digital audiences. Each asset is a machine that generates income. While others buy status, they buy future freedom. 3. The power of leverage. They know that growing fast requires leverage. This can be financial leverage, using credit strategically to invest in something that appreciates. Time leverage, delegating tasks, automating processes. Knowledge leverage, learning from those who have already done it, instead of reinventing the wheel. The invisible rule is simple. Growing alone is slow, growing with leverage is exponential. 4. The different relationship with risk. For most, risk is something to avoid. For the newly rich, risk is something to manage. They don't embark on blind adventures, but they also don't stand still. They calculate, test small, adjust quickly. Fear doesn't paralyze, fear guides. 5. Time as the main asset. The newly rich know that time is more valuable than money. Lost money can be recovered. Lost time doesn't come back. Therefore, they invest in things that save time: systems, teams, technology. Every free hour is used to think about how to grow, not just how to survive. 6. The invisible discipline. From the outside, it may seem that they live boldly, but inside there is a rigid discipline. They have routines, clear goals, and constant reviews. They know exactly where the money goes and where it should go. This discipline is invisible to those who only see the result, but it's what sustains growth. 7. Continuous learning. The new rich never stop learning. They read, study, take courses, and follow trends. They know the world changes quickly and that ignorance is costly. Learning is not a luxury, it's survival. 8. Closing block 2. The invisible rules of the new rich's mindset aren't magic. They are choices repeated every day. They play the abundance game, focus on assets, use leverage, manage risks, value time, maintain discipline, and never stop learning. That's why they grow so fast. Block 3. Real and comparative stories. 1. Two paths, same income. Imagine two people, Lucas and Mariana. Both are 30 years old. Both earn 6,000 Brazilian reals per month. Both live in the same city, have similar expenses, and no inheritance. The difference? Lucas thinks like a nouveau riche. Mariana thinks like most people. 2. What Mariana does. Mariana follows the traditional manual. Works hard. Saves what's left over. Dreams of retirement. She has savings of 15,000 Brazilian reals, but the money hardly grows. Each salary increase translates into more consumption. New car, new cell phone, installment trips. She feels she is living well, but she is not building anything solid. 3. What Lucas does. Lucas thinks differently. He invests first, spends later. He invests 2,000 Brazilian reals per month in assets, index funds, fixed income, and a small online business. He doesn't buy status, he buys freedom. In 5 years, Lucas already has over 200,000 Brazilian reals invested. The online business generates an extra 3,000 Brazilian reals per month. He doesn't depend solely on his salary. 4. The contrast in 10 years. Mariana continues working, has 50,000 Brazilian reals saved, but without big plans. Lucas has over 600,000 Brazilian reals in assets and can choose whether to continue his job or dedicate himself to his own business. The difference isn't luck. It's mindset. 5. The invisible impact. In her daily life, Mariana seems to be better off. New car, installment trips, visible consumption. Lucas seems simpler. Used car, less ostentation. But the invisible is happening. Lucas's assets grow on their own. Mariana's don't. 6. The story of Carla and Roberto. Another example, Carla and Roberto, work colleagues. Carla thinks like a nouveau riche. Roberto doesn't. Roberto spends his entire annual bonus on parties and electronics. Carla invests her bonus in a real estate fund. 5 years later, Roberto has nothing but memories. Carla has a monthly passive income that pays part of her bills. 7. The positive cycle versus the neutral cycle. Those who think like a nouveau riche enter a positive cycle. Investing, wealth grows, more security, better decisions, more wealth. Those who don't think this way enter a neutral cycle. Spending, nothing accumulates, insecurity, limited decisions, dependence on salary. 8. Closing of Block 3. These stories show that the difference between growing fast and standing still is not in income, but in mindset. The nouveau riche don't wait for money to be left over. They create systems, invest in assets, and let time work in their favor. That's why they grow so fast. Block 4. The psychological pillars of the new rich. 1. Risk as a tool, not a threat. Most people see risk as something to avoid. The new rich see risk as a tool for growth. They know there is no reward without risk, but they also know that risk does not mean recklessness. They calculate, test on a small scale, adjust quickly, and only then scale up. Risk, for them, is fuel, not an enemy. 2. Invisible discipline. From the outside, it may seem that the new rich live boldly, but inside there is a rigid discipline. They have well-defined routines, clear goals, and constant reviews. They know exactly where the money goes and where it should go. This discipline doesn't appear in social media photos, but it's what sustains accelerated growth. 3. Continuous learning. The new rich are lifelong learners. They read, study, take courses, and follow trends. They know the world changes quickly and that ignorance is costly. Learning is not a luxury, it's survival. Every new piece of knowledge is a competitive advantage. 4. Freedom as the ultimate goal. For the newly rich, money is not the end. It's the means to achieve what truly matters: freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom from depending on a single salary. They don't just want to accumulate wealth. They want to accumulate options. 5. Resilience in the face of crises. The newly rich understand that crises are inevitable. They don't try to avoid them, they try to prepare for them. They build reserves, diversify investments, create multiple sources of income. When a crisis arrives, they don't panic. They already have a plan. 6. The balance between boldness and prudence. What makes the newly rich different is not just boldness. It's the ability to balance boldness with prudence. They take risks, but strategically. They grow fast, but with a solid foundation. This balance is rare, and it's exactly what makes them thrive. 7. Closing block 4. The psychological pillars of the new rich show that wealth isn't just about money. It's about mindset. They transform risk into a tool, discipline into routine, learning into an advantage, and freedom into a goal. That's why they grow so fast. Block 5. The practical plan of the new rich. 1. Invest first, spend later. Rule number 1 is simple. Investment comes before consumption. The new rich don't wait for money to be left over at the end of the month. They schedule automatic contributions, treating investment as a fixed expense. What's left over is what can be spent. 2. Intelligent diversification. They don't put all their eggs in one basket. Part in fixed income for security. Part in index funds for growth. Part in their own or digital businesses for multiplication. This mix ensures that, even in crises, there is always a solid foundation. 3. Multiple income streams. The new rich never depend on a single salary. They create extra income. Online businesses, consulting, real estate investments, monetized digital audiences. Each source is a layer of security and growth. 4. Controlling hidden expenses. They don't let money slip through small loopholes. Useless subscriptions, credit card interest, impulse purchases, all of that is eliminated. Not because they are stingy, but because they know that every wasted reel is a reel that could be growing. 5. Automation and systems. The newly rich use technology to their advantage. Automatic transfers for investments. Spreadsheets and apps to monitor expenses. Digital tools to scale businesses. They don't just rely on discipline. They create systems that work even when they are busy. 6. Periodic review. Every few months, they review everything. How much it's yielding. If the goals have changed. If it's time to increase contributions. This review keeps the plan alive and adapted. 7. Long-term mindset. The practical plan of the newly rich isn't about getting rich tomorrow. It's about building something that grows on its own, year after year. They know that time is their greatest ally. 8. Closing of Block 5. The practical plan of the newly rich shows that wealth is not luck. It's organization, discipline, and well-structured systems. They invest first, diversify, create multiple income streams, eliminate waste, automate processes, and constantly review. That's why they grow so fast. Block 6. The future the new rich are building. 1. A future without chains. The new rich don't just want to accumulate money. They want to break invisible chains, dependence on a single salary, fear of crises, constant insecurity. The future they build is a future of free choices. 2. A legacy for future generations. The wealth they build isn't just for them. It's for their children, for their family, for those who come after. They know that money can run out, but the knowledge and systems they create can last for generations. The legacy isn't just assets, it's a transmitted mindset. 3. Redefining retirement. While previous generations thought about stopping work at 65, the new rich think about working by choice, not by necessity. They don't want to wait decades to live well. They want to live well now, and continue growing throughout their lives. 4. Social impact. The newly rich are also changing how society views money. They show that inheritance or luck isn't necessary. Mindset, discipline, and systems are essential. This inspires others to think differently, creating a domino effect. 5. Long-term vision. They aren't just concerned with the next year. They think 10, 20, 30 years ahead. They know that time is the greatest ally and that every decision today is a brick in the future. This long-term vision is what ensures that growth is not fleeting, but sustainable. 6. Balance between living and building. The newly rich don't sacrifice the present for the future. They know that experiences are also an investment. They travel, enjoy themselves, create memories, because they understand that wealth isn't just about numbers, it's about quality of life. The future they build is balanced, financial freedom and a fulfilling life. 7. Closing of Block 6. The future that the newly rich are building is not just about money. It's about freedom, legacy, impact, and balance. They redefine what it means to be rich. It's not about having more, it's about being able to choose more. That's why they grow so fast and leave marks that go beyond their own lives. Block 7. Conclusion and call to action. 1. Recalling the journey. Throughout this content, we've seen that the new rich aren't just people with more money. They are people with a different mindset. They transform risk into a tool. They create systems that work for them. They value time above all else. They build freedom and legacy. 2. The unavoidable contrast. While many still follow the old playbook, work hard, save, wait for retirement, the new rich are growing at an absurd speed. Not because they are smarter or luckier, but because they think differently. They don't play the scarcity game. They play the multiplication game. 3. The power of decision. The difference between those who stand still and those who grow fast isn't in income, but in decision. Decision to invest first. Decision to create assets. Decision to learn continuously. Decision to think about freedom, not just consumption. 4. The impact beyond money. Being newly rich isn't about showing off. It's about living with less anxiety, more options, and a higher quality of life. It's about being able to choose your work, your experiences, and your future. It's about building something that doesn't depend solely on luck or institutions. 5. The final call. The mindset of the new rich, why they grow so fast, isn't just a title. It's an invitation. An invitation to change the way you think about money, time, and freedom. An invitation to start today, even small, but to start. Because every day that passes without investing, without creating assets, without thinking differently, is a lost day of multiplication. And every day you decide to act is a brick laid in the future you want to build. 6. Inspiring closing. Imagine looking back in 20 years and realizing that every small decision transformed into freedom, peace of mind, and legacy. Imagine being able to say, I didn't stand still. I started. I built. This is the invitation. Start today. Because the future isn't built tomorrow. It starts now, with the decision to think and act like the new rich.